All right, let's dive into something kind of unique today. We're going to be blending this idea of ancient wisdom, with a modern twist.
Right.
So we're exploring how your love of firebending and Avatar connects to this really interesting tarot reading that you sent over.
Yeah, it's not a typical combination.
Not typical at all.
No,
That
but there's a lot to unpack here.
There is.
Yeah.
And we're going to start with that scene that you picked out where Aang and Zuko, they discover the Sun Warriors and that awesome firebending form, the dancing dragon. I don't know about you, but that scene always gets me fired up.
Yeah. I mean, the visual storytelling in that scene is definitely powerful. But, if we look beyond just the really impressive firebending moves, there's a deeper message there, I think, for you about the importance of lineage and learning from the past. Remember, Aang and Zuko went back to the source, seeking knowledge from those who came before them.
Yeah.
So think about your own journey. Like, how can you draw wisdom from your own personal history? You know what experiences have really shaped who you are today.
That's such a great point. It's like they're inheriting this legacy, not just learning a fighting style.
Yeah.
And you're right. It makes you think about your own life and the people or experiences that have, passed on really valuable lessons.
Exactly. And it's interesting how that scene also highlights this idea of hidden knowledge.
Yes.
That sunstone powering this whole civilization, hidden from the world. It's like a metaphor for the untapped potential that lies within each of us, just waiting to be discovered.
Okay, I have to admit, the idea of a hidden civilization powered by this mystical gemstone, that's something that really captures the imagination. It's like there's this whole other layer of wisdom and power that we don't even know about.
And that sense of mystery and the unknown, that ties in perfectly with our next stop on this deep dive, the tarot reading.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you resonate with the water element, which speaks to your intuition and emotional depth, right?
Right.
So it's fascinating that this reading, which focuses on transformation through conflict, features so much fire imagery.
Okay.
Like the cards are kind of nudging you to explore those fiery aspects of yourself, even if they feel a bit outside your comfort zone.
So we're moving from like literal firebending to this metaphorical fire of personal transformation.
I know
That's a pretty cool transition. And it sounds like we're about to get into the like nitty-gritty of this tarot reading that you sent in.
Absolutely. Now remember, a tarot reading isn't about like predicting a predetermined future.
Right.
It's more like using the cards as a mirror to reflect on your past, present, and potential paths forward. It's about gaining self-awareness and understanding.
Right. It's about finding guidance and insights that can help you navigate life's challenges and make choices that are aligned with your true self. So, for those of us who maybe aren't tarot experts, break it down for us. What do these cards reveal about our listeners' journey, particularly those fiery themes that emerged?
Absolutely. So let's take a look. For your past, we have the Nine of Pentacles and the Seven of Swords. The Nine of Pentacles. It often signifies a sense of accomplishment, but it can also point towards a potential longing for something more. Does that resonate with you at all?
Interesting. And paired with the Seven of Swords, which often represents secrets, and this feeling like you've had to kind of fight unfairly, it really sounds like there's a story here about overcoming challenges and maybe even like feeling like you had to develop a certain level of self-reliance and resilience to get through.
Yeah, and this really sets the stage for like the present moment, which is reflected in the Page of Wands and the Emperor. Remember how we were talking about you resonating with that water element? Well, these two cards, they're all about fire, new beginnings, creative sparks, that, stepping into your power.
Yeah.
It's almost as if these cards are like encouraging you to embrace a bolder, more assertive side of yourself.
Yeah.
To not be afraid to kind of like take charge and really express your passions.
That's such a cool way to look at it. It's like those fire cards are assigned to tap into this different kind of energy, to not be afraid to like stand out and really make things happen. And it reminds me of how Zuko, like he had to break free from his past and really embrace his own path.
Exactly. Remember that scene where Zuko finally confronts his father, the Fire Lord, and he chooses to fight for what he believes in. That's that fiery energy of the Page of Wands and the Emperor in action.
Wow, when you put it that way, it really clicks. So if the present is about embracing this fiery energy, what does the future hold according to these cards?
This is where things get really, really interesting. We see a return to water with the Ace of Cups and the Eight of Cups.
Okay.
Now, the Ace of Cups often signifies like new emotional beginnings, a sense of peace and fulfillment.
Okay.
It suggests that after this period of transformation, you'll emerge with this renewed sense of purpose and emotional clarity.
That's really reassuring, especially after navigating those fiery challenges. It's like after the storm comes the calm,
Right.
but then we have the Eight of Cups, which
Yeah.
typically represents like walking away from something,
Mhm.
even if it's difficult. So what do you make of that?
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just when it seems like smooth sailing, there's this card suggesting this need to let go of something that may be holding you back. It could be a relationship or a belief or even a way of life that no longer serves your highest good.
And doesn't that tie in beautifully with Zuko's arc?
Hmm.
Like he had to walk away from everything that he thought he wanted, his father's approval, his pursuit of power, to ultimately find that true fulfillment and peace. And that scene where he apologizes to Iroh, I mean that's powerful. Oh, you are so right about that scene with Zuko and Iroh. It's
Hmm.
like a punch to the gut,
Yeah.
but in a good way. You
Yeah.
really feel like the weight of Zuko's regret,
Yeah.
and then that power of Iroh's forgiveness.
It's a beautiful example of how we can like choose compassion over anger, even when we've been hurt.
Yeah.
Remember Iroh's words to Zuko? He says, "I was never angry with you. I was sad because I was afraid you'd lost your way."
Mm.
That's profound stuff.
It really is. And it makes you think like are there any Zuko and Iroh moments in your own life?
No.
Are there any grudges or past hurts that you've been holding on to that might be preventing you from experiencing that kind of healing and reconciliation?
It's a question worth pondering, you
Yeah.
know, because just like Zuko had to like confront his past and make amends,
Mm.
sometimes we need to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's forgiving ourselves or others.
Right.
It's not always easy, but the Eight of Cups, it reminds us that sometimes letting go is actually necessary for growth.
Yeah, and that letting go can lead to something even better.
Exactly.
Just like it did for Zuko. He found his true family and his purpose, not through like force or ambition, but
Right.
but through like forgiveness and compassion. It's like that saying, the greatest act of liberation is to forgive.
Absolutely. And remember forgiveness. Like it isn't about condoning someone else's actions.
Right.
It's about freeing yourself from that weight of resentment
Mm-hmm.
and creating space for healing. Just like those fire cards encouraged you to embrace a more like assertive energy. These water cards, they kind of remind you of the importance of emotional intelligence and that power of letting go.
It's amazing how these different elements, fire and water, represent such different energies, yet they're both so essential for growth. It's about finding that balance, just like the dancing dragon.
Precisely. It's about embracing all aspects of ourselves.
Mm.
The fiery and the flowing, the assertive and the compassionate. And just like Aang and Zuko learned from that ancient wisdom of the Sun Warriors, you too are on a journey of discovering your own inner wisdom and power.
So to wrap up this incredible deep dive, I think we've uncovered some really powerful insights here.
Yeah.
We explored like the significance of lineage and learning from the past, the importance of embracing both our fiery and our watery aspects, and of course that transformative power of forgiveness.
And most importantly, this deep dive has highlighted the connection between those ancient wisdom traditions and your own personal journey.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about firebending or tarot cards, right? It's about understanding yourself better and navigating life with greater awareness and purpose.
Even though we're starting with water, our journey begins by understanding its opposite, fire.
Makes sense when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Even water needs fire to really transform. Heat turns water into mist, even ice. Kind of like how challenges and change, those trial by fire moments, often push us to grow,
Ooh, I like that. Makes you think about how those tough times really shape us.
for sure. And when we talk fire in Avatar, we got to mention Zuko. His whole journey from anger to forgiveness really shows how even fire can be healing, can bring renewal.
So true. Okay. Are you ready to see what your past cards reveal?
This is cool.
We actually drew from two different decks for you, adding another layer to explore.
Oh yeah, multiple decks are great for that. It's like getting insights from different perspectives, builds a more complete picture.
Exactly. So, your first pass card, this one's from the mystery deck, simply says, "It hurts to see you." Powerful, right? Makes you wonder what's behind those words.
It does, doesn't it? Speaks to a kind of unspoken pain, something maybe only those close to you could see.
Next, we've got the Nine of Pentacles. Now, usually this card means material comfort, stability, but since you're in the water tribe, all about community, abundance. Makes me wonder if there's a deeper meaning here. Like maybe we were searching for security in possessions, maybe neglecting that emotional richness the water tribe embodies.
Oh, interesting take. Adds another layer, for sure. Especially with the next card,
Which is?
the Seven of Swords. Connected to Aquarius, the element of air. Often means betrayal, deception. Maybe you stayed silent when you should have spoken up, let something slide that wasn't right with your values.
So instead of riding the wave, you were stuck, maybe even betraying your own needs. Makes you think about the times we stay quiet just to feel stable, even if it costs us something.
And that's where the real reflection begins, right?
So we've uncovered some echoes of the past, moments where maybe you put external stability over being true to yourself. But the water tribe's all about adapting, going with the flow.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely. And that sense of movement, that transformation, it's strong in the cards for your present. There's a definite shift from that grounded earth energy and the intellectual air to something way more vibrant. We're talking fire.
Fire, huh? Okay, now that's interesting. Tell me more. What's the first card we're looking at?
Our mystery deck gets straight to it this time. Find new friends. Could be literal, sure, like actually expanding your social circle. But thinking about staying true to yourself, what if it's about finding new influences, new ideas, ways of thinking, things that really resonate with your values?
I like that, like refreshing your inner circle with people who get you, who encourage your growth.
Exactly. And this new beginning theme, it's echoed in the Page of Wands, Aries, fire element. This card's like a burst of creative energy, a push to embrace your passions, get out of that comfort zone.
The Page of Wands, right. That's the bold action card, isn't it? Starting new projects, going after dreams with that fresh energy.
That's it. Maybe there's a project you've been putting off, a passion you've ignored, or a totally new direction you're hesitant about.
Yeah.
This card's saying, now's the time, take that leap.
Find your fire, so to speak.
Exactly. And funny you should say fire, because the final card for your present is the Emperor. Another Aries card, fire element again.
The Emperor, wait, isn't that like authority, structure, control? How does that fit with new beginnings and all this passion?
That's where it gets really interesting, right? See, even fire needs to be harnessed to be truly strong. Think about Zuko. He didn't just master firebending, he mastered himself. Learned to balance his impulsiveness with wisdom, compassion.
So not just raw power, but stepping into your power with balance, purpose, leading, but also listening.
Right on. And remember that contrast we talked about, stagnation of the Seven of Swords versus this dynamic energy we're seeing now? Maybe it means you're finally ready to own your authority, take on that role you're meant for, but with this new self-awareness, this responsibility.
And maybe, just maybe, those new friends you're meant to find, they'll be the ones who help you navigate it all. Even the strongest firebenders need wise allies, right?
So true. And speaking of allies, think about the water tribe again. Their strength comes from that deep connection to their emotions. Which brings us to the final part of your reading, the future. And get this, a cathartic wave is heading your way.
Ooh, a cathartic wave, you say. Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What's the future hold?
A cathartic wave, huh? Yes, sounds kind of intense, but like you said, maybe we need that sometimes, right? Like clearing out old energy to make space for the new. So what's the first card we're looking at for the future?
This mystery deck, it really gets right to the point this time. It asks, why do we argue so much? Definitely feels like there's some unresolved conflict coming up.
Why do we argue so much? Makes you think it involves someone close, maybe even someone from the past, what needs to be addressed. You know?
Yeah.
Exactly. Could be about finally having that conversation you've been putting off, setting those healthy boundaries, or even realizing some relationships have just run their course.
Letting go of what's no longer serving us. Very water tribe.
Right. And speaking of the water tribe and that deep connection to their emotions, the next card we have is the Ace of Cups. Cancer. Water element.
Ace of Cups, isn't that like emotional healing, new beginnings on the feels side of things?
Absolutely. Like a wave of emotion just washing over you, cleansing old hurts, making space for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Self-acceptance even. This card suggests you're entering a time of powerful healing, emotionally. Vulnerability, compassion. Those are going to be your strengths here.
Makes me think of Katara, you know? She was such a powerful healer, not just physically, but emotionally, too. She never backed down from her own pain or the pain of others, and through that empathy, she brought so much healing.
Perfect example. And remember, healing isn't always these big dramatic things. Sometimes it's those quiet moments, reflecting, allowing yourself to feel your feelings without judgment.
So we've confronted the past, stepped into our power, and now we're riding this wave of healing. What's the final card on this journey?
The Eight of Cups, closely tied to Pisces, so more water energy here. And this card, it encourages you to really ask yourself, what do I need to release to move forward? What's holding me back from clarity, from purpose?
Letting go, even if it's hard. It's like how water always finds a way, right?
Yeah.
Adapting, flowing, even around the toughest obstacles.
Exactly. It's not about giving up. It's about making choices that are in line with your own growth.
Wow, this whole reading has been quite the ride. Embracing change, finding your voice, tapping into that water tribe wisdom. As we wrap up, what's the most important thing our listeners should take away from all of this?
I think it comes down to trusting the flow of life. You've been through the fire, learned those tough lessons, and now you're being called to step into this new chapter, one where emotional honesty, being true to how you feel, those are your guiding lights.
And like a true member of the water tribe, you're ready for whatever comes your way. You've got that resilience, that adaptability, and most importantly, that deep understanding of your own inner strength.
Beautifully put. Remember, this reading, it's not about predicting what's going to happen. It's about giving you the power to create the future you want.
And on that note, dear listener, we'll leave you with this. What if the most powerful changes we experience, the ones that really transform us, aren't the ones that hit us out of nowhere? What if they're the ones we choose to ride? With courage, with compassion, and with a wide open heart. Hey there! Ready to dive into something fascinating? Today's deep dive is all about you. Well, not you, but kinda.
Yeah.
We're going to be using your unique set of sources to explore this idea of balancing earth and air in your life. Think personal growth, navigating change, and finding that sweet spot between feeling grounded but also embracing flexibility.
And to make it even more interesting, we're using the world of Avatar, the Last Airbender, as our guide.
Right.
We'll be drawing on specific scenes and character moments to illustrate these concepts.
Yeah.
It's really amazing how well this show speaks to these deeper themes of personal development.
Right. Who knew Aang and the gang were secretly self-help gurus? Okay, so we've got a blend of sources here. Some tarot interpretations, reflections on specific avatar character journeys, even a sprinkle of astrological insights.
Yes, and taken together, they paint a really vivid picture of your personal evolution. Where you've been, where you are now, and where you might be headed. It's like piecing together a map with you as the explorer.
Love that analogy. So where does our explorer's journey begin?
Well, let's delve into your past. The sources suggest a time when intuition and emotional depth were dominant forces, almost like you were navigating the world primarily through feeling.
Okay, so we're talking big feelings, deep waters.
Exactly. This resonates strongly with the energy of the Queen of Cups in tarot. She embodies that intuitive, compassionate energy, but also that tendency to lead with the heart, sometimes reacting quickly based on emotions.
So channeling their inner Katara, maybe. A lot of heart, but maybe not always the most patient approach.
Spot on. Remember how Korra initially struggled with airbending? She
Yeah.
wanted to muscle her way through, much like the unyielding nature of Earth, instead of embracing the flow, the be-the-leaf philosophy. This source here suggests a similar experience in your past, a time when you may have approached challenges with that same headstrong Earth energy.
Makes total sense. When you're dealing with those big feelings, sometimes the easiest solution seems like pushing through, even if it means bumping into a few walls along the way.
Precisely. And speaking of bumping into walls, there's also the Five of Cups here. It traditionally represents loss, regret, maybe even some heartache. It makes me wonder, have there been any experiences in your past that you've had to grieve or move on from?
Ooh, yeah, the Five of Cups can be a tough one. But it's never about dwelling on the negative, right? More like acknowledging those experiences and what they taught us.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing those moments as part of your journey, not the defining chapters.
And now for the big question. How does this connect to the whole earth and air dynamic?
Well, think of it this way. Earth is about structure, stability, grounding. And while those are all positive qualities, too much Earth energy can sometimes lead to rigidity. It's like trying to control the wind. You can't force it. You have to learn to move with it.
Okay, so maybe during that time, our explorer was so focused on navigating those emotional depths, on establishing that solid sense of self, that they might have missed out on some of the freedom and flexibility that air represents.
It's not about right or wrong, more like understanding the patterns at play. So let's shift gears. We've explored the past. Now let's dive into the present.
Here's where things get really interesting, because it seems like there's a bit of tension brewing. On the one hand, there's a sense of stability, of accomplishment. But on the other hand,
There's a but brewing, you're right. And this but is where that air element becomes really important. You see, while you've clearly built a strong foundation for yourself, the Nine of Pentacles here speaks to a level of material security and independence.
I've got this energy.
Exactly. But there's also this feeling of, dare I say, being a bit too comfortable. Like maybe those earthly walls you build to protect yourself have become a bit too confining.
Almost like building your dream castle, only to realize you forgot to put in enough windows. You've got the security, but you're starting to crave a view.
And here's where the Seven of Swords pops up, whispering a little warning. Now, the Seven of Swords often represents self-deception, sneaking away with what we think we want versus what we truly need. Are you perhaps telling yourself a story that no longer serves you? Are you holding yourself back in some way?
Ooh, that's a good question to sit with. It's like we're starting to see that tension between earth and air play out in a whole new light. It's like you've mastered earth-bending, you've built your fortress, established your boundaries, but now the wind is whispering, inviting you to explore what lies beyond those walls.
Mm-hmm. And what's fascinating here is this isn't about abandoning the earth aspect altogether.
Right.
It's about finding that balance, learning how to dance between stability and adaptability.
Yeah.
Just like Aang mastering all four elements, he never loses his connection to his air nomad roots, that free-flowing spirit.
So less about either or and more about yes and.
Yes, embrace the and. And speaking of embracing, the future painted by these sources is all about finding freedom through something truly powerful, self-compassion.
Okay, I love this, because we often think of freedom as external, breaking free from things. But this is about finding liberation from within. Tell me more.
Well, think about Tough, this incredible earth-bending master, tough as nails on the outside, but inside, she yearns for connection, for acceptance.
That scene where she lets Katara give her a makeover gets me every time.
Exactly. That vulnerability, that willingness to let someone in. That's a glimpse into what the future holds for you. The Emperor card, traditionally associated with Aries energy, speaks to this. It's about reclaiming your power, yes, but also softening those self-imposed boundaries.
So it's not just about breaking free, it's about learning to be kind to ourselves along the way.
Precisely. Recognizing that rigidity, even when it comes from a place of strength, can be limiting. Sometimes, the bravest, most freeing act is to soften, to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. And that's where the Knave of Wands comes in, urging you to embrace spontaneity, approach life with a sense of playful curiosity.
Like taking a deep breath of fresh air and saying yes to the adventure, even if the path ahead isn't perfectly clear.
Exactly. True strength lies not in holding on tight, but in learning to dance with the wind, that beautiful, adaptable energy of air.
This makes me think about how we often associate air with intellect, with communication. Is there a connection there, too?
Absolutely. Remember how Aang struggled to connect with Avatar Roku because he resisted the traditional rigid ways of the Fire Sages? Sometimes accessing that air energy means questioning the old stories, challenging the ways we've been taught to think.
So maybe part of this evolution involves tapping into that inner voice again, the one that got a little muffled while building that fortress.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It's about trusting your intuition, that gut feeling, even when it doesn't make logical sense.
And maybe even speaking up, sharing those thoughts and feelings more openly.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Because true freedom comes not just from embracing our own inner truth, but also from expressing it authentically in the world, which can be scary.
Right.
It's like taking a leap of faith,
Yeah.
trusting that the wind will catch us.
Yeah, and sometimes it will feel like soaring, other times like a bit of turbulence. But the key is to stay open, to stay curious.
Right.
Every experience, even the bumpy ones, offers valuable lessons.
Absolutely.
So how can our explorers start to bring more of this air energy into their life? What are some practical steps they can take?
That's a great question. One powerful practice is simply bringing awareness to the breath. Even taking a few deep, conscious breaths throughout the day can help us reconnect with that air element, with that sense of spaciousness and flow.
That's so simple, yet so powerful.
And when challenges arise, as they inevitably do, instead of meeting them with that unyielding earth energy, see if you can approach them with a bit more flexibility. Ask yourself, what would it look like to be the leaf in this situation? How could I find a way to move with the current instead of against it?
That's a game changer right there.
Oh. Another powerful practice is journaling. Allow yourself to simply free write, to get curious about what's coming up for you. Don't judge, just observe.
Like giving ourselves permission to just be curious about our own inner landscape.
Precisely. Because sometimes the greatest insights come from a place of gentle exploration, of simply allowing ourselves to be surprised by what we discover.
This is making me realize that self-compassion is such a key part of this whole journey.
It's essential. And it's something we often neglect, aren't we? We can be so hard on ourselves, setting unrealistic expectations and then beating ourselves up when we don't meet them.
It's true. We'd never speak to a friend the way we sometimes speak to ourselves in our own heads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what if we started treating ourselves with that same kindness, that same understanding that we offer to those we love? What if we celebrated our strengths and approached our perceived flaws with a sense of gentle curiosity rather than judgment?
It's like we're being given permission to stop apologizing for who we are and to step into our power, not in spite of our vulnerabilities, but because of them. It's like we're integrating the elements within ourselves,
Yeah.
not trying to become all air, all lightness and flexibility.
Right.
Instead, we're taking that grounded earth energy, that strong sense of self we've cultivated, and we're weaving it together with the adaptability and openness of air.
Beautifully put. It's about giving yourself permission to be a work in progress, constantly evolving, constantly learning, and through that journey, finding that sweet spot where you can stand strong in your own truth while also being open to the winds of change.
And sometimes that means revisiting the past, not to dwell on regrets, but to learn from those experiences, those Five of Cups moments.
Absolutely. Those times when maybe you stumbled or things didn't go as planned, they hold valuable lessons. They're not meant to haunt you, but to teach you.
To show you how far you've come and remind you of your resilience.
Exactly. They highlight areas where you might still be holding yourself back, where a little more grace and compassion for yourself could be transformative. Remember, we can often be our own harshest critics.
So true. What if we treated ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we offer to those we love? What if we celebrated our strengths and approached our perceived flaws with gentle curiosity rather than judgment?
Now you're getting it. Self-love isn't selfish, it's essential. It's the foundation we build a life of authenticity, joy, and deep, meaningful connection on.
It's like learning to be the leaf in our own lives,
Right.
trusting the flow, bending with the wind, and knowing that even when we stumble, we have the inner strength to rise again, stronger and wiser than before.
Beautifully said. And as we move into this next phase, remember, you're not alone in this journey. We all stumble, we all question ourselves, and we all have moments where we feel stuck between who we are and who we want to be.
That's such an important reminder. It's easy to get caught up in our own heads and forget that we're all in this together. Seeing those shared experiences, even through fictional characters like Aang or Korra, makes it feel less daunting somehow.
Exactly. And think about all the incredible characters in the Avatar universe who embody this balance. Aang with his playful wisdom, Katara with her unwavering compassion, even Toph with her tough exterior and her soft heart. They remind us that true strength comes from embracing all parts of ourselves.
And that sometimes the greatest act of self-love is allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, to ask for help when we need it, and to trust that the universe has our back.
So well said. As we bring this deep dive to a close, I'm curious what's resonating most with you right now? What stands out as particularly relevant to your own journey?
For me, it's that idea of self-compassion as an act of rebellion. It's so easy to get caught up in striving and pushing ourselves to be better, to do more, that we forget to simply be kind to ourselves along the way.
It's a practice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cultivating that inner gentleness, that unwavering self-acceptance.
Yeah, it really is. And it makes me think about Korra again and how she had to learn to be both the fierce warrior and the compassionate leader. And it wasn't always easy for her.
Not at all. She made mistakes, she stumbled, but she never gave up on herself. And that's what's so inspiring about her journey. It reminds us that growth isn't linear. It's messy, imperfect, and ultimately incredibly beautiful.
So beautifully said. So as we leave this space of exploration and reflection, I want to leave you with this. What if you chose to approach yourself, your life, with that same blend of earth and air energy?
What if you embraced the stability and strength you've cultivated while also remaining open to the possibility of change, of growth, of becoming even more fully yourself with each passing day?
What aspect of your life could use a little more air right now? A little more flexibility, a little more trust in the unknown, a little more self-compassion?
Those are powerful questions to sit with.
They really are. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those thoughts, to let the wisdom of earth and air guide you on your own personal journey of growth and discovery.
Until next time, may you find balance, embrace your strength, and never stop exploring the amazing, ever-evolving tapestry of your own unique being. Welcome to a deep dive into the world of Avatar.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you're just dipping your toes into the series, get ready, because today we're diving deep into the elements of fire and water,
Right?
exploring their symbolism and how those themes play out in our own lives.
Yeah, it's amazing how these elements, fire and water, become these reflections of opposing forces, not just in the show, but also within us and the world around us.
It really makes you think. And get this, our sources for this deep dive are a YouTube video essay analyzing a key firebending episode
Okay.
and a tarot reading using avatar archetypes.
Wow.
Talk about a fascinating combo.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see how different perspectives can shine a light on a single theme. In this case, fire and water, destruction and healing, it all ties into this idea of finding balance. And that's something that resonates far beyond the Avatar universe, don't you think?
Absolutely. So let's talk fire, shall we?
Let's do it.
We're introduced to this legendary firebending master, Jong.
Right.
And here's the kicker. He's terrified of fire.
Oh, yeah. It's fascinating because the essay points out that Zhang is the first character who really digs into the true nature of firebending. Remember how he describes fire as being alive, something that will spread with or without a person? That's a powerful statement.
He even calls it a burning curse. A stark contrast to firebenders like Zhao, who's practically throwing fireballs for fun. It really makes you realize that fire in Avatar isn't just some whimsical tool. It has a raw, destructive power that even benders struggle to control.
Yeah, it's almost like that fear Zhang embodies reflects a real-world awareness of just how dangerous knowledge can be. It reminds me of the scientists who were wary of the power of AI, or even Oppenheimer's famous quote about the atomic bomb, "Now I am become death, destroyer of worlds." There's a weight to truly understanding the power you wield, isn't there?
You nailed it. And here's where it gets really interesting. The tarot reading we have focuses on the water element, even though it's meant for people who connect to the fire element.
Really? It's like the reading is acknowledging that passionate, driven energy, that inherent fire, and saying, hey, we get it, but sometimes that fire can feel overwhelming.
Totally. And this is where that idea of balance comes in. The reading even mentions Jiangzhong and how some people feel like they destroy everything they touch because of their intensity.
Which, let's be honest, is a relatable feeling for a lot of us, even if it's not literal fire we're worried about. But the reading isn't about suppressing that fire. It's about recognizing its intensity and finding healthier ways to express it.
Speaking of expressing things,
Yeah.
remember how Katara suddenly discovers she can heal with water in this episode?
Oh, yeah.
Part of me was like, wait, that came out of nowhere?
Uh-huh.
But then it hit me. It plays into that bigger theme of balance we're unpacking here.
Exactly. If fire is inherently destructive, it makes sense that water, its opposite, would have this potential to heal.
It's like yin and yang, but with elemental superpowers.
Exactly. And the tarot reading connects this to emotional healing, which adds another layer to the idea of water. It's about recognizing the wounds we carry, the ones we inflict, and the ones inflicted upon us, and finding ways to mend them.
We can't forget about that intense dynamic between Zuko and Katara. Their journey together is like watching that fire and water tension play out in real time.
Oh yeah, they're dynamic for sure. And we can't forget about that scene the tarot reading mentioned where Zuko and Katara are both hunting down the man who killed Katara's mother.
Right.
That's fire and water colliding in a big way.
Intense is an understatement. Zuko's driven by his own vendetta, Katara's fueled by grief and this deep desire for justice. It's heavy stuff.
And yet, they find a way to work together, to balance each other out. Zuko's fire, that relentless drive he has, it helps Katara confront her pain, while Katara's empathy and compassion reminds Zuko there's more to life than revenge.
It's almost like they each embody the lesson the other one needs to learn.
Right.
Zuko needs to temper his fire with compassion, and Katara needs to connect with that fire within herself to fight for what she believes in.
And their dynamic really highlights how we can learn and grow through our differences. We often talk about finding balance within ourselves, but what about finding that balance through our relationships?
That's a really good point. It's not just about mastering our own inner fire and water. It's about recognizing that we can find balance and support through our connections with other people too, Who are the Zucos in your life? The ones who challenge you, maybe even push you a little out of your comfort zone.
And who are your kataras? Those people who offer comfort and a listening ear, who remind you to tap into your own compassion. Recognizing these dynamics in our lives can be so insightful.
It really is. I mean, think about it. You can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. Sometimes we need those Zuko figures to shake things up, to help us break free from patterns that aren't serving us.
And then we need those Katara figures to remind us that it's okay to be vulnerable, to ask for help, to allow ourselves to be supported. Just like Zuko and Katara realize they need each other to achieve their goals, we can find strength and resilience in those around us.
This is really resonating with me. It's like we often think of balance as this solitary pursuit, but it becomes so much more dynamic when we invite others into the process. It's
Yeah.
about recognizing that we're not meant to do this whole life thing alone.
Exactly. And speaking of finding support, let's loop back to the tarot reading for a moment. Remember how the present card, the Four of Wands reversed, talked about feeling isolated? Well, the future cards offer a much more hopeful outlook on connection and community.
Okay, bring on the good vibes. I'm ready for some positive energy.
The Three of Pentacles, the card we mentioned earlier, is all about collaboration, teamwork, finding your tribe. It suggests that you'll have opportunities to connect with like-minded people who appreciate your unique gifts and talents.
So it's like finding your people, the ones who get you, fire and all. And not just get you, but celebrate you.
Exactly. And this connection isn't limited to just one or two people. The Three of Pentacles hints at creating a whole community of support.
This is giving me all the warm fuzzies. But how does this tie back into the whole fire and water theme?
That's where the Chariot card comes into play. This card, governed by the element of water, is all about emotional resilience, mastering that balance between fire and water, and charging ahead with a clear sense of purpose.
Right. How does finding your tribe help you master that balance?
Imagine this. You're surrounded by people who support you, who encourage you, who challenge you to be your best self. They become your anchors, helping you stay grounded when your fire burns too bright and offering a hand up when you're feeling extinguished.
It's like they become an extension of your own inner water, providing that cooling, nurturing presence that helps you stay balanced and aligned.
It's that beautiful thing about human connection. We don't have to do this alone. We're meant to lean on each other, to learn from each other, to grow together. It's in these connections that we often discover our greatest strengths and learn to navigate life's challenges with more grace and resilience.
So true. But it's also easier said than done, right? Finding your tribe, building those supportive relationships, it takes effort. Where do we even begin? It really is. Like, where do you even start?
Right.
Yeah.
It's true, it does take effort, but it doesn't have to be as daunting as it seems. Sometimes the best place to start is closer than you think. What about the people you already have in your life?
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's a great point. You don't always have to go on some grand adventure to find your people.
exactly. Reach out to friends, family members, colleagues, anyone you feel a genuine connection with, and see if they're open to connecting on a deeper level.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But what if your current circle isn't really vibing with where you're at right now? It's not always a perfect fit, is it?
Yeah, it rarely is. Life is about growth, and sometimes that means our circles need to evolve too. That's where exploring new hobbies, interests, or activities can be a game changer. Think about the things that make you feel most alive. Then find ways to connect with others who share those passions.
Right. Put yourself out there, be open to new experiences, and you'll naturally gravitate towards people who resonate with you.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to get creative. Join a book club, take a pottery class, volunteer for a cause you're passionate about. Even striking up a conversation with someone at your local coffee shop can spark a connection.
You never know who you'll meet or where those connections might lead. Speaking of unexpected places, what about online communities? That's something we haven't really touched on yet.
Oh, yeah, online communities can be incredibly valuable, especially if you're feeling isolated or don't have access to groups that share your interests.
There's a whole world waiting to be explored online, from forums and social media groups to virtual workshops and events. It's amazing to think about.
hmm And don't underestimate the value of that online anonymity. It can provide a sense of safety, especially when you're exploring new interests or sharing vulnerable parts of yourself.
Yeah, it's like dipping your toes into the water before taking the plunge.
Yeah.
But building those meaningful connections, whether online or in person, takes time and effort.
It's true, consistency is key. It's like tending to a garden. You need to nurture those relationships, water those seeds of connection, and be patient as they grow. And speaking of gardens, Imagine how much more beautiful and resilient a garden is with a diversity of plants.
That's a beautiful analogy. It's a great reminder that diversity isn't just about being inclusive. It's about recognizing that we all benefit from a wider range of perspectives, experiences, and backgrounds.
Right, diversity makes life more vibrant and communities stronger, so don't be afraid to branch out and connect with people who are different from you. You never know what you might learn.
This has been so insightful, but before we wrap up, I have a question. What about those times when you're feeling burnt out on people? Sometimes you just need a break from the social scene.
Yeah.
I hear you, and that's completely valid. Finding balance is also about honoring your own needs and limits. If you're feeling socially drained, take time for yourself to recharge and reconnect with your own inner world.
It's that reminder that self-care isn't selfish. It's essential. Sometimes the best way to show up for others is to make sure you're showing up for yourself first.
Exactly. And that's where those practices we talked about earlier, journaling, mindfulness meditation, even therapy can be so helpful for nurturing that sense of inner balance.
Like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of your own well-being first.
Yeah, taking care of our own well-being allows us to connect with others from a place of wholeness and authenticity. And that's what it's all about, isn't it?
This deep dive has been incredible. From the symbolism of fire and water in Avatar to practical tips for finding balance, building community, and nurturing ourselves, it's given me so much to think about.
It's been a joy to explore these themes with you. Remember, the journey of finding balance is ongoing, but by embracing both our inner fire and inner water, we can navigate life's challenges with more grace, resilience, and joy.
So well said.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe this conversation will inspire a few people to tap into their own inner firebender or waterbender.
Now, that would be something.
Until next time, keep those fires burning bright, those waters flowing freely, those hearts open to the magic of connection. Ever feel like the more you chase after freedom, the more it gets away?
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to really dig into that whole idea, like the unexpected link between, freedom and being grounded.
Okay.
And that's
Yeah.
our sources this time.
Yeah, what are we looking at today?
We're talking an old cartoon and, wait for it, a tarot reading.
Oh, I love it when we get a good mix like this. Really gets you thinking.
Right. So I was going down this YouTube rabbit hole the other day, as one does,
Happens to the best of us.
and I found these clips, right?
Yeah.
King Boomy,
Oh, from Avatar.
Avatar,
Yeah.
The Last Airbender,
Uh.
and this guy, he's got me thinking, seriously thinking.
Oh, interesting. In what way?
So in one of the clips, he's going on about, seeing past the obvious.
Oh,
In
okay.
his example, the world's greatest super slide,
Uh-huh.
which turns out to be
Don't tell me. A mail system.
a mail system. I mean, come on, who thinks like that?
Right. That's boomy for you, though. But it's actually, when you think about it, such a great example of how important perspective is,
Oh, totally.
What we might see as a limit, right? Like just a simple mail chute
Yeah.
can become something amazing, maybe even fun if you just change your viewpoint. And I think that's what Boomy's getting at. Freedom's often about seeing past those limits we put on ourselves.
100%. And that whole finding freedom and limitations thing,
Yeah.
it's even more obvious in this other clip.
Okay.
Boomy takes back his whole city after, get this, being held prisoner during a solar eclipse.
Wow.
He's totally calm, collected, almost like he wanted to be there.
It's like his captivity didn't actually trap him,
Right.
He understood that real freedom isn't about not having any limits.
Yeah.
It's about deciding how you react to them.
Huh?
He was grounded, strong inside, just
No.
waiting for the right moment.
Okay, get this, though, right? Because this is where it gets kind of freaky. I found this tarot reading.
Okay.
It's meant for people drawn to air. Freedom, change.
Yeah, makes sense.
But the whole message,
Yeah.
it's all about finding strength in earth, in stability. A little ironic, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. It is a bit of a funny duality, isn't it? We want that air freedom, right?
Totally.
To move, to change, whenever.
Yeah.
But then to really get free, we need that earth energy, the stability, the grounding. That's what lets us explore all that airy stuff with some purpose.
Okay, so the reading itself is pretty wild. For the past, it talks about being a feather bouncing between concrete walls.
Mm-hmm.
There's movement, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also, like, trapped,
Mm-hmm.
even kind of beat up by those limits.
Wow. What an image. It's like perfectly describes what happens when you're always chasing change without that grounding,
Yeah.
Like you're just adrift, no anchor.
Right. Okay, now the present. Get this. Say the word, and I'm yours.
Oh, wow.
It's like that feeling of wanting to, like, take off,
Yeah.
but you're held back by responsibilities, commitments, maybe relationships.
Right. Important stuff, but yeah, sometimes it can feel, I don't know, limiting.
Exactly.
It's that push and pull,
Yeah,
freedom versus connection, wanting to be on your own, but also wanting to belong.
for sure.
Figuring that out, finding that balance, that's where the growth is.
Okay, and now for the future. This is where it gets really crazy with Boomy.
Oh,
We've
wow.
got 11.11.
Alignment, manifestation.
Yeah, all that. Then the tower, like, big upheaval. Got to break stuff down to break through.
Almost like Boomy waiting it out led to his freedom.
Totally.
It's kind of spooky, isn't it? Like the universe is trying to give us a sign.
Right. And you know what the last card is?
What's that?
The devil.
Oh, interesting. Attachments, right?
Entrapments.
Hmm.
Makes you wonder, could the stuff we see as holding us back actually be the key to getting more free?
Hmm.
Maybe it's not about breaking free from them,
Right.
but finding freedom within them.
Whoa.
Mind-blowing, right? So how does all this go back to Boomy and being, grounded but free?
Well, I think Boomy, he's like the poster boy for this whole idea, finding freedom in those like limiting situations. Even locked up, he wasn't freaking out, trying to escape. He just was, you know,
Grounded.
grounded, patient, choosing how to react instead of letting it get to him.
So not just taking whatever life throws at you, but realizing you always have a choice.
Yeah.
Even when you feel stuck.
Yeah. And that's where the grounding comes in.
Yeah.
It's about building that like unshakable core.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually do that, get grounded? I mean, especially when, like, our instinct is to run from limits.
It's a process.
Yeah.
But one thing to try is mindfulness. Just paying attention to right now. No judgment.
Okay.
That can be super grounding. Noticing those stuck feelings without getting caught up in them.
So instead of freaking out when you feel stuck, yeah, like, take a breath. Get curious about it.
Yeah. Like, what's this feeling trying to tell me? What's underneath it? How can I deal with this, but in a way that works for me?
Finding that pause, yeah. Between feeling and reacting,
Yeah.
then you can actually choose.
And those choices, they might show you that the limits you're running from are actually chances to grow.
Okay, that's trippy. So that devil card from the reading,
Mm-hmm.
those attachments,
Yeah.
maybe they're the way to more freedom. Not by ditching them, but by, like, changing how we see them.
That's a cool thought, right? What if real freedom isn't about being totally alone? What if it's about knowing what really matters to us? What gives us that feeling of belonging, of purpose, even if it's not what we expect?
Okay, this is making me think about routine.
Mm-hmm.
We see it as the opposite of freedom, right? But what if it's actually a source of stability? A way to, like, create that grounded feeling every day?
For sure. Routine can be super grounding. The world's chaotic. Routines give you structure.
They free up your brain space too, right?
Absolutely.
Funny.
You can focus on what actually matters.
It's like the more grounded we are in our everyday life,
Yeah.
the more freedom we have to explore, be creative, just enjoy those little moments.
That's the paradox. We look for freedom in these big external changes.
Right.
But sometimes the biggest shifts happen inside when we build that inner strength, that ability to handle whatever happens.
Okay, so for everyone listening who gets that desire for freedom, for change,
Yeah.
for, like, endless possibilities.
The question is, what if something in your life that seems like it's holding you back is actually the key to a whole new level of freedom? If you just approach it with a little curiosity, maybe even try to find some strength in that stability.
It's like we're taught that freedom is about breaking free from something.
Right.
But really, it might be about leaning in.
Exactly. Leaning into the things that seem restrictive. Commitments, even those parts of ourselves we don't like. That's where the magic happens.
It's Boomy all over again. He didn't fight being captured. He used it. It gave him time to reconnect with himself, plan, and then take back his power.
And that is so important. It's not about looking for limitations, but knowing they're just part of life. And instead of, ooh, a roadblock,
Right.
what if we thought, ooh, what can I learn from this?
Powerful stuff. So as we wrap up this deep dive into freedom, grounding, and what we can learn from cartoons and tarots, what's the one thing you want our listener to take away?
I think it's this. Real freedom isn't about floating around with nothing tying you down. It's about that sweet spot between earth and air. That stability, but also the potential for anything.
I love it. So we basically uncovered this secret.
Yeah.
the way to freedom might actually be paved with limitations. Who knew?
Right. Who knew?
This has been amazing.
Yeah,
Seriously, I need to go write all this down.
I hear that. And hey, maybe next time you feel stuck, you'll hear King Boomy in your head. Or
Yeah,
get out your tarot deck.
totally. All right, everyone, that's it for this deep dive on freedom and grounding. We'll leave you with this. What if something that feels limiting in your life is actually the key to like a whole new level of freedom and growth? Until next time, stay curious. I think we're taught that freedom is about breaking free from something,
Right.
but really it might be about leaning in.
Exactly. Leaning into the things that seem restrictive, you
Right.
know? Commitments, even those parts of ourselves we don't like. That's where the magic happens.
It's like Boomy all over again. He didn't fight being captured, he used it. It gave him time to reconnect with himself, plan, and then bam, and take back his power.
And that is so important. You got it. It's not about looking for limitations, but knowing they're just part of life. And instead of, ugh, a roadblock, what if we thought, ooh, what can I learn from this?
Hmm.
You know?
Powerful stuff. So as we're wrapping up this deep dive into freedom, grounding, and what we can learn from cartoons and tarots,
Mm-hmm.
what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away?
I think it's this. Real freedom isn't about floating around with nothing tying you down. It's about that sweet spot, you know? Between earth and air. That's stability, but also the potential for, well, anything.
I love it. So we've basically uncovered this secret. The way to freedom might actually be paved with limitations. Who knew?
Right, who knew?
This has been amazing. Seriously, I need to go sit with this for a bit, let it all sink in.
I hear that. And hey, maybe next time you feel stuck, a little boomy wisdom will pop up. Or, break out the tarot deck.
Totally. All right, everyone. That's a wrap for us on this deep dive into freedom and grounding. We'll leave you with this. What if something that feels limiting in your life is actually the key to like a whole new level of freedom and growth? Until next time, stay curious, everyone.